I never thought my life would end up like this, but here we are. I've been married to my wife for 5 years. After we tied the knot, I didn't keep in touch with my family much. It wasn't intentional, we just drifted apart. My wife and I focused on building our lives, which mattered to me. A few months ago, my world came crashing down. I found out my wife had been having an affair with my older brother. The betrayal was like a punch to the gut. I didn't even know how to process it. Everything I thought was solid in my life was suddenly shattered. But it got worse. When I told my mom what happened, she didn't react as I expected. Instead of supporting me, she took my brother's side. She told me to get over it and said, "This is just how life is sometimes." Hearing that from my own mother was like salt in the wound. Since then, I've cut contact with my brother and haven't spoken to my mom much either. Now my wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, has come to me with another bombshell. She's pregnant and says the baby is mine. Here's the thing, I can't even be sure. We were still intimate even as things started falling apart, so it's possible. But after everything she's done, I no longer know what to believe. She's already talking about how I'll need to pay child support, saying that I have no choice if the baby is mine. I'm not stupid, I know what my legal responsibilities are, but I can't bring myself to just accept this without knowing for sure. I want a paternity test before I commit to anything. But even if the baby is mine, part of me feels like it's so unfair that I'm stuck supporting someone who betrayed me in the worst possible way. My mom says I need to be a man and move on, but I'm struggling with this. How can I be expected to just accept all of this like it's no big deal? So, am I the idiot for wanting to confirm that the baby is actually mine before agreeing to pay child support? And even if it is mine, would I be wrong for feeling like I shouldn't have to be tied to her forever after what she did? Not the idiot. Get the paternity test before agreeing to pay child support. If it's yours, you're tied to this woman for at least the next 20 years, but only as the mother of your child. You are free to divorce and date, marry someone else. Your mother just wants this grandchild. She doesn't care which of her sons gave it to her. And get a good lawyer. You owe a cheater nothing. You may owe your own flesh and blood, but the cheater deserves nothing more than the bare minimum. Honestly, it sounds like Mom knew what was going on. Of course she knew. Also, who continues to be intimate with their wife after they learn she cheated and their marriage is falling apart? What the heck, what a foolish person. No offense man, but that's on you. You are the idiot. Also, it's child support. You're supporting the child, not your potential witch of an ex. Get that thinking out of your head. If the baby is yours, you absolutely need to support it. Oh heck, I'm over here imagining that the cheating wife messed with other guys and neither of the brothers is the father. OP, ask your mom what her definition of being a man is, if it includes being intimate with someone else's wife, and if it makes your brother more of a man when that someone else is his brother. And then ask her what moral she raised you all with, that she's okay with one son's actions, and not the other son's reaction. Then do what everyone else is doing and share that crap on Facebook to get other people's reactions. Good luck, OP. My wife, 36 female, and I, 37 male, have been married for 5 years and have a preschool-aged son. My wife is a pediatrician and I work in marketing. Our son is in daycare during the day and recently moved to a new preschool room. The first few weeks in the new room are fine, but then he became friends with a couple of older boys in the class and began to have some behavioral issues. The 3 boys seem to feed off each other's energy and can get really rambunctious and play too rough. Games of tag will regress into pushing, shoving and hitting. Nap time comes with them tossing pillows at each other and being disruptive. Disagreements turn into hitting and throwing. We've had meetings with his teachers and the director and changed how we do a few things at home. We've tried different types of goal setting, positive reinforcement, multiple conversations, removing privileges, etc. But his behavior continues to be disruptive at best and dangerous at worst. We're exhausted. The next step is getting him in touch with a behavioral therapist. Thankfully, my wife knows a few of them and they can expedite the scheduling process. It's gone to a point where we have to pick him up from daycare in the middle of the day multiple times. The daycare has both of our cell and work contact numbers, but they only seem to ever be able to reach me. I've had to leave work 7 or 8 times in the past 2 months to get him. Every time daycare calls me, they say they tried my wife but she hasn't answered. I will then call and text my wife to see if she can get him, but her responses are always delayed to the point that daycare has had to call me back to remind me that our son needs to be picked up. I understand she has patients to attend to, but she also has a family. After the last 2 times I had to pick up our son, my boss told me that I couldn't keep doing this. Then it happened again. I tried to get a hold of my wife but she didn't answer or return texts. I told my boss I had to pick up my son and he told me that if I left I shouldn't bother returning. I tried my wife again and still nothing. I waited an hour until daycare called me again and told me I needed to come get our son, so I left work and got a phone call later that I was fired. My wife finally called after I got home with our son. She apologized for not getting back to me sooner and gave excuses about patience. I told her that I didn't want to hear it and that she didn't need to make more excuses because I got fired so I could stay home with our son anyway. She wanted to know more but I told her I didn't want to discuss it. After we got our son to bed she asked if I wanted to talk about it, and I told her that her dedication to her job and her patience cost me my job. I told her that she never once made arrangements to pick our son up, and now we're a one-income family. She told me it wasn't her fault, and I was being a jerk for blaming her. You are the idiot. Here's why. When you marry a doctor or fireman or someone responsible for the lives of others, you just have to step up. I'm sorry but ain't no one dying because you didn't sell soda to a pre-tween. I'm genuinely not being rude but some people just have more important jobs. Earth is. This is my advice to everyone and this isn't even gendered advice. Do not marry people who have these types of jobs if you can't handle sometimes having more housework dumped on you, or them needing to be on call etc. To be fair, a pediatrician is rarely in a life or death situation with a patient. That said, it's a very inflexible role, especially compared to what sounds like a standard white-collar office job. If someone on my team has to duck out for a couple hours, I might need to cover a call for them, and they'll need to catch up later. If a doctor must leave for 2 hours, that's 4 or 5 patients that need to be rescheduled last minute. That said, I'm team everyone's the idiot here, because it's a shared responsibility to have a better plan in place, like everyone said, but also because how the heck is this happening so often? If their kid gets kicked out of daycare this often, it's more than just feeding off these other 2 kids. I, 32 female, have been dealing with infertility for 7 years now. My husband and I are prepared that we might never have a child together, but it's not easy. We're both currently in individual therapy to help us process all of this and find a way to be at peace regardless of what the future holds for us, but I truly hope we're lucky enough to have a child. My husband and I have picked out the baby names. We never talked about them, but we have a little note on our baby name book with our boy and girl name pics. It's in our bedroom. We don't look at it much anymore, but it keeps us hoping, you know. My sister, 36 female, has 5 daughters, and 2 weeks ago she gave birth to her first son. My husband was working, but I was at the hospital with my parents and my sister's in-laws waiting for the birth. Once he was born, we were called in to meet my nephew, and my sister told us they'd chosen Elio as his name. She said the name was originally mine and my husband's top choice, but since we wouldn't have any kids after all this time, she decided they'd use it and not let the name go to waste being kept secret by me. I then remembered seeing my sister in my room while she was pregnant a few months before. I thought nothing of it then, but realized she'd been snooping. My parents asked how she could do that without talking to me first. My sister replied that it seemed a shame to waste a perfectly good name if I asked her not to use it. I couldn't handle it and I left. I didn't even say congrats or anything. I left and went home and I cried for a while. The very next day my sister called and asked me why I made it such a big deal. She also decided to drop that she was hurt. I never discussed my baby names with her, gatekeeping them, even when I knew I wouldn't have a baby. I asked how she could go out of her way to state the one name my husband and I had picked. She called me insensitive. I ended the call without another word. My parents checked in on me 2 days later, but since then my parents have said I should let it go and apologize for walking out. My sister also said I made her postpartum time worse and it was very selfish on my part. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. I'm a big supporter of we don't own names, and that's true. But your sister was acting incredibly out of line here. The snooping, calling you out for not talking about the names ever, and choosing the name that she specifically got the idea of from snooping without so much as a conversation, is entirely unacceptable. Keeping your preferences secret is not gatekeeping names. The names exist without you. You don't owe anyone else your ideas. It sounds like she deliberately searched out your preferred name, so she could use it to spite you and rub it in that she can use it while you so far can't. What a malicious way to bring a child into the world. And now of course she makes your provoked reaction about how that hurts her. I don't know how you get past this with her. Your sister sounds highly toxic. Oh, she meant to hurt. I don't know what your underlying relationship is there, if she's actually jealous of your marriage or something else, but I don't believe for a second this sequence of events is in any way coincidental. Get a pet snake, rat, etc. and call it her name, lol. She's gross and is showing her true colors. I wouldn't call her sister any longer. What she said and did was so cruel. 6 months ago, my son Leo, a young teen male, decided to cut off my brother Jack, 46 male. Now my mom, brother, a sister-in-law and other family members want me to make my son forgive him to keep the peace. For a little bit of context, I'm 46 male, a single dad. My family has always helped me in many ways, mostly babysitting when Leo was younger, and even before my son was born we were all very close. We all live relatively close to each other, so we've been able to keep in touch with weekly gatherings, spending the holidays together. Everyone loves my son and my son loved them back. However, my brother Jack has always been my son's favorite person. Back when my son was pre-tween, Jack and his wife had more flexible jobs than me. Think freelancing versus a 9 to 5. So they always volunteered to look after Leo, something he loved. Almost every month they would take him to the zoo or aquarium or even go camping with him. As my son grew older, he developed the same interests as my brother, such as video games, photography and music. When Leo was tween, he told me he wanted to have the same career as his uncle. This is all to say they were extremely close. Last year my brother informed me that he and his girlfriend Mary were getting married. I knew neither Jack nor his girlfriend believed in marriage, so when I asked them about it, they told me it was all Karen's idea, my sister-in-law's mom. Because Jack and Mary didn't care much about the wedding, and since Karen was paying for it, they let her plan everything, from the venue to the food, music, etc. Karen decided to plan a destination wedding at a fancy resort. In July of last year we received the invitation, which was addressed to me and my son. I even had a +1 if I wanted. And as soon as the website went up I tried to make a reservation for our hotel room. I should clarify that I had to call the hotel to make my reservation, because the link wasn't working, and I really couldn't risk not getting a room. When I received the email conversation it said, room for 2 adults, but I didn't think much of it. I assumed it was an error due to the language barrier with the hotel guy. I also bought the plane tickets for us around the same time. Fast forward to January, less than a month before the wedding, when my sister called me crying, saying that Karen had made a mistake with the venue. Apparently the resort was for adults only, so they didn't allow anyone younger than 16. My son was a young teen at the time. I asked her if it would be possible for Leo and me to stay in another hotel, but they told me the whole resort was child-free, so my son wouldn't even be allowed to attend the ceremony or the reception. I was disappointed and I told my sister-in-law I talked to my son about it. I knew how excited he was about his uncle's wedding. Still, she insisted both she and Jack wanted to tell him in person. Honestly, my son was devastated. He started crying as soon as he was told he couldn't go. He pleaded with them and even offered to give them all of his savings so they could move the wedding. After 30 minutes of this, my sister-in-law got frustrated and just told him he was being selfish and that this day wasn't about him. Leo eventually apologized and went to his room. After the wedding, my son just stopped talking to my brother. If Jack sent him a message, Leo would just ignore it unless it had something to do with me. For example, he would only reply if Jack asked him to tell me something because he couldn't reach me, etc. At our family gatherings, Leo would only respond to small questions like, can you pass the salt, or help grandma with the plates, but he would ignore my brother if Jack or Mary tried to start a conversation or ask him about the school, etc. A month after the wedding, Jack and Mary offered to take him for a special vacation during spring break to make up for the wedding, but my son just ignored them, and he later told me he didn't want to go with them. It was heartbreaking because I knew how much he wanted to go to that place and I wasn't able to afford it yet, but he stuck to his guns. Something similar happened on Leo's birthday. He asked me if I was planning to throw him a party. I do it every year, and when I said yes, he asked me not to invite his aunt and uncle. I tried to convince him to invite them because they're family, and they were really sorry, but he just said that if they didn't want him on their special day, he didn't want them on his. My brother was crying when I told him he wasn't invited. However, things came to a head this past weekend. We were at my mum's house and a conversation about Leo's university came up. My mum asked Leo if he was still planning on going to the same university as Jack and that he should start planning for that, but my son replied that he wasn't interested anymore and had chosen to study something else. Then my mum said, I thought you wanted to be like your uncle, and my son just said, why would I want to be like him? At this point I intervened and told Leo he didn't have to be so rude, but the damage was already done. My brother and sister-in-law heard what he said and left shortly after. Last night my brother texted me saying I was an idiot for letting my son continue with this grudge. even accused me of being jealous of their relationship, and that's why I wasn't doing anything to fix it. I just told him these were the consequences of his actions, and that this was 100% his fault for allowing his witch mother-in-law to plan the wedding when she obviously hated my child. He hung up on me. My mom and some other family members think I should force my son to forgive my brother so we can all move on, claiming there was no ill intent and it was just a small mistake. But I don't think I should. My son was clearly hurt and he should be allowed to heal and forgive them only when he's ready. So, am I the idiot? So, your son's hurt feelings were nothing to worry about and nothing's changed plans about, even plans that the plan holders didn't want. But your brother's hurt feelings about a birthday party are enough to get everyone in the family involved. Not the idiot, and it sounds like everyone is treating Leo as a kid and not as a whole person with thoughts or feelings. You cannot force someone else to forgive another person. Your child was hurt. You can talk to him, but you can't force your son to forgive. The more people try to make your son, who is only a young teen, forgive him, the angrier he's gonna get. Your brother and sister-in-law could take a lesson from him, considering they let themselves be talked into a wedding where one of the people they claimed to be incredibly important to them couldn't come. They're only getting upset because their guilt is getting too much to bear. They can grow up.